Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 204. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you are not a member, come on over. We have a knit-along going on, and we are getting deep into wool season, my favorite time of the year. So hi, how are you? I am coming to you a day late. It is Monday, October 22nd. Usually I record on Sundays, but I'll talk to you a little bit about why I'm a day late. I hope you are having a lovely start to your week. We had a busy weekend, which is part of why I did not record yesterday. Wes ran a half marathon in Kansas City on Saturday morning, and then we drove up to Des Moines, Iowa, which is about 3 hours north of us. And he ran a half marathon on Sunday morning as well. And I did not run, but I walked. I did a 10K on Saturday morning in Kansas City and a 5K yesterday in Des Moines. And it was cold. Kansas City was actually nice. We started in the 40s and ended in the 50s. Des Moines started in the 30s. So it was chilly yesterday morning. I had on my woolly gear, and it was only in the 40s when we finished. So it was still pretty chilly and windy up there. But then we drove home yesterday afternoon, and I did not get home till almost 5 o'clock, and I was tired, and I didn't get as much done on the trip as I had hoped because of a few things that happened, and I'll talk about those. So yesterday afternoon I was like, I just don't think I can podcast. So I waited until today. Today I am working from my home office and it's around lunchtime, so I decided to take a break and record a quick podcast. So I hope that you are doing well. I had a pretty good week last week, lots of productive stuff, and let's get right into it. So today, you may have noticed I pulled the camera a little bit closer for this episode. I decided we didn't need quite as much of the white wall behind me. So I decided to try this. You'll have to let me know if you like this. I may even pull it in a little bit closer, but it's a little bit weird because the camera is like right up near me. So it's a little bit different today. So today I am drinking T2 chai. And I was turned onto this by a friend who is actually now a co-worker. It is a delicious spicy chai tea. It is black tea with cloves, cardamom, star anise, cinnamon, ginger, natural and artificial flavor. T2 is in New Jersey, although it says made in Australia, so I'm not sure. But I order them fairly locally. I got a chai and a couple others, but I absolutely love the chai. And today I'm using my Kansas Wizard of Oz mug. If you live in Kansas very long, you get used to all the Wizard of Oz jokes. This one is my favorite, though. It's a note from the desk of Toto, and it says, "Dear Dorothy, took the shoes, or hey Oz, took the shoes, find your own way home. Love, Toto." And Toto's on this side. Have to figure out the... Anyway, this is chai tea. It is delicious. It is not nearly as cold here as it was in Iowa. I think it's in the 50s today. And I'm doing laundry and running errands and kind of doing a general catch-up day. So let's talk about the knits. I finished my brown sheep holiday knit along, or brown sheep sweater along. So if you are a member in the group, you probably, or you have watched the podcast before, you probably know about this. I am still in the process of hosting a fall sweater knit along. And actually it's a K-Cow knit and crochet along, so crochet is more than welcome. I am hosting it. It is generously sponsored by Brown Sheep Company, and the rules are very simple. Knit or crochet a sweater, any size, any yarn weight. The yarn that you use has to be brown sheep. So there is still time to enter. That started on September 1st and will end on November 30th. The grand prize is a sweater quantity of Lamb's Pride from Brown Sheep. We also have some great prizes from Knitter's Pride, including some Zings needles and some wool wash from Eucalan, as well as I will probably gift a few patterns for things that I like. And we have a few sweaters already finished. We have a couple people who knit child sweaters and at least one finish of an adult sweater size. And I finished mine this week. It is still just a little bit damp because I wet it. I gave it a full wash to block so that the color work would lay right. And those of you who have watched before or see my Instagram, this is Humilis by Isabel Kramer. Humilis is the name for hops, and these are hops. It is a beautiful colorwork yoke, kind of a relaxed fit sweater. It fits beautifully, although I'm not wearing it because, like I said, it's still a little bit damp. Last week I had one sleeve to go and I finished, and I can't remember which sleeve that is, but the sleeves are just knit plain, and then they have one color stripe right near there with the contrasting color. My sweater is knit in brown sheep. It is rain cloud and coneflower. I used the Prairie Spun DK, which is a very slightly rustic wool. It is not like super soft like merino, but it is not super itchy at all. And I actually am fairly sensitive to wools, so it is a nice wool, and it has softened up a lot with washing. I basically knit the pattern to specifications. I had to knit the colorwork yoke twice because the first time through I was not a fan of my tension. If you look back in my Instagram history, you will see that. And so I am very, very pleased with it. This week we're supposed to be in the 60s, but as soon as the temperature drops, I know I'm gonna live in this sweater this winter because it is perfect for knocking around the house. And I love the colorwork yoke and that it's got a little something, but it's actually a pretty simple sweater, so I'm sure I will wear it all the time with jeans and leggings and everywhere. So this is the Humilis sweater by Isabel Kramer, like I said, knit per pattern in brown sheep Prairie Spun DK. I doubt I will do another sweater for the knit along, although I will be doing another sweater because it is almost time for NakniSweMo National Knit a Sweater Month in the month of November. I am a moderator over in the NakniSweMo group, and we are gearing up for our November sweater knit along. If you are interested in participating, please join us, and you are more than welcome to double dip. So if you have a sweater quantity of brown sheep that's been staring at you, make a sweater in the month of November and submit it to the brown sheep knit along. So I have been enjoying looking at the tags on Instagram and seeing what everybody's creating for the brown sheep sweater knit along. The tag is CKT Brown Sheep Fall Sweater 2018. I know it's really long, but I have been enjoying seeing what you're making and continue to post and finish those sweaters up because we still have a month and about a week to go because it's only the 22nd today. So I finished mine in about a month and a half, and you still have time to at least do a baby sweater. So if you are interested, please come check out the details in the group. And that one's done and in the books for me. I need to do a nice photo shoot with it. Hopefully I'll get my husband to take some photos of me this weekend wearing it and get those posted. So that is a finish for me. A project that you had seen me working on that I was working on last week are my socks for the month. I usually end up doing about a pair of socks for the month, although I'm not super strict about it. And the pair of socks that I showed you last time was my Mountain Colors Twizzlefoot. I am doing a review on this yarn, and I am knitting the London Bee Ridge socks by the Knitting Expat, and it is a fairly simple pattern with purl ridges. The thing that I adapted from her pattern is she has a German short row heel, and I went ahead and did a heel flapping gusset since that's what I enjoy. As you can see, the first sock is done. So this is just a beautiful yarn. Twizzlefoot has some silk in it, and it is just lovely to knit with. Super soft. I think they're going to be really great socks. I also think this would be great in a shawl because it's got a really nice feel and probably a nice drape to it. Not exactly what I'm looking for in my socks, but I think the superwash merino will hold them pretty snug as well, and the silk will just make them kind of luxury, but I'm sure it would be great as a shawl too. So I finished the first sock, and I am most of the way through the second sock. I am pretty much just about at the end of the gusset after the heel turn, so I guess I'm not completely done. I still have the foot to go. But I worked on this in the car on the way up to and back from Des Moines. I managed to get through the leg and the heel flap and gusset, and so now I just have to do the foot and on home. So by next weekend, I'm sure these will be done. This is one of the projects that I'm going to focus on this week because I need to get these done and get my review up. Also because I need to knit a couple pairs of socks for Miss Roxy before I see her at Thanksgiving, and I am running out of time. So I need to finish these so that I can get maybe 1 or 2 more pairs knocked out for her. And maybe a pair for Miles too. I don't know. Anyway, so these are my Mountain Colors Twizzlefoot socks. Knitting these on a size US 1, 2.25 millimeter. Like I said, London Bee Ridge by the Knitting Expat, Mina Phillip, and only modification is a heel flap and gusset. And I love these. They are definitely pink, but then they've got all these other really cool, almost fiery looking colors, oranges and reds and a little bit of browns. And they just totally remind me of fall. So I am having fun with those. So let's talk about 2 other projects I cast on this week because, you know, I'm busy and have deadline ending, so why not? Rhinebeck was this weekend, and I was a little bit, I admit, I was a little bit jealous not to go. And so what I decided to do was I decided to cast on a hat. I was looking for something instant gratification since I've actually technically finished 2 sweaters this month, and I still have a ton of things to do, but I wanted some instant gratification. And when I was at Rhinebeck 2 years ago, I picked up, we found this amazing dyer. It's called Cozy Colorworks, and they're on Instagram, and they were also there again this year. When I was there in 2016, I picked this up. This is hand-dyed superwash merino, approximately 200 yards, worsted weight, 4 ounces. And this is what I have left, but it is called Robin's Egg, and it was this great yarn that had like pink and turquoise in it. And I don't know why I was so drawn to it. Obviously, I love teal, but I'm not sure why I was so drawn to the pink and turquoise. But so 2 years ago, when I was shopping at Rhinebeck, the really big thing, and I guess maybe it's still a thing, but I am not as trendy a person as I would like. The big thing was to find like some worsted or Aran weight yarn and then hold it double-stranded with a strand of something fuzzy like mohair Kid Silk Haze. And make a really fuzzy, lovely hat. And I know that that's still kind of a phase in a lot of Stephen West's Marled Mania and stuff, to hold multiple things and multiple textures together, but like it was just everybody was knitting these gorgeous fluffy hats. And so at the time I wanted to buy a fluffy hat, and I wanted to make a fluffy hat, and I was trying to decide like what color would go best with this. And I was having trouble because the pinks weren't quite right and the blues weren't quite right, because all the turquoise blues seem to be more blue and this is more teal. And so I finally, and I'm not a huge mohair person, so I was like, I just don't know what I want. I finally broke down and bought a skein of Kid Silk lace from Hedgehog Fibers. And it is in the colorway Jelly. This is 70% kid mohair, 30% silk. And it is crazy, crazy bright. It is in the Jelly colorway, which is like this neon pink. And I know it's totally blowing the camera out. And so I bought this, and I put these 2 skeins together in a bag, and I was like, I am gonna do this. And of course, time has just slipped away from me. And when I was tossing the stash the other day, and when I was cleaning out my craft room to sort of turn it into my office, I decided to pull out a few things that were already kind of put together in projects that I knew I wanted to make. And so I pulled out the Ziploc bag that had these 2 skeins in it. And then I spent like a day or 2 second guessing myself, thinking this is like crazy bright. What the hell am I doing? I'm never gonna wear this. I'm gonna hate this. But I wound up the skeins anyway. And so on Friday night, when I was feeling a little bit sad, I guess Thursday night, when I was feeling a little bit sad about everybody talking about Rhinebeck, I cast on to knit my hat. And I decided it would be the perfect second project. I took the socks with me, and then I was like, I'm going to take the hat with me because I can knit it. It's mindless knitting. And I had a little bit of, if you ever watch or listen to, sorry, the Knit More Girls, They are an audio podcast, Jasmine and Gigi, a mother and daughter, and they have been podcasting forever. They just hit episode 500. And they have a segment of their podcast that they call When Knitting Attacks, like when bad things happen to your knitting. I got maybe through the brim and then maybe like 2 repeats of the pattern, and my needle broke. I was using a US 7 marbles, 16-inch. It is the hat that I have, or it is the needle that I have used to knit like pretty much every hat that I have knit, as long as there's a US size 7 involved, and usually I just switch to a 7. I have used it for every hat that I have knit for the last umpteen years, probably 5 or 6 years. And I absolutely love it. It's a fixed circular 16 inches. They're bright green because the marbles are like acrylic color coded. And so it's like one of my favorite needles. I always get comments and pictures about it. In fact, when I posted a picture of this hat in the car on the way up there, I got a question about it. And it's probably my fault because I tend not to bring double points with me to finish a hat. What I tend to do is then try and magic loop with a 16-inch needle. And of course, so I'm creating a lot of tension on the needles. And I actually thought it was going to break where the join joins the needle. I've been waiting for that to happen. But what happened was I went to go and knit with it, and the acrylic tip broke off. Like, clean break. I meant to bring it and show you, but it snapped. It's acrylic, it's plastic, it's gonna happen. I'll probably order another one. But that was the end of my hat knitting on our vacation, because I had expected to finish this hat and come home and be able to show it to you. And then I couldn't show it to you because it wasn't done. So I actually switched to a metal needle and knit it last night. So that was a long story to show you my hat. And it actually came out beautifully. I was afraid that the pink was going to be way, way, way too bright. And it definitely is a pink hat. I mean, if you don't like pink, this is not the hat for you. But it did not come out as bright and as crazy as I thought. And I absolutely love it. This is the Pom-Pom... I think the Pom-Pom Rox Hat. I will put it in the show notes. I'm a bad podcaster. I did not bring it with me. It calls for a skein of Aran weight of hedgehog fibers. I reasoned that holding the lace weight with the fluff and the worsted weight together would create a really nice cozy hat. I ended up not knitting it exactly as prescribed. I went down several needle sizes because I didn't like the fabric I was getting and it was turning out huge. So what I did is, I think it called for a 7 and an 8, and I did the brim on a 5 and then the hat on a 7, and it is a nice slouchy, it's definitely got some room, it's not super tight, but it is a nice slouchy warm hat. Now, Pom-Pom. I had intended to ask you your opinion today on the pom-pom, and I can't find... So I bought a hot pink pom-pom, but it is actually quite a bit darker than this color. It's like much more of a magenta as opposed to like a neon pink. And I was trying to decide whether it would be appropriate for the hat, and I can't find it. So, the choices, there's definitely going to be a pom-pom on this hat because this hat is called a Pom-Pom Rox Hat, and I am a big fan of pom-poms. So, keep an eye on my Instagram because I'm going to go looking for this pom-pom in the next couple days. And if I can't find it, then I'm definitely just going to create a pom-pom out of the leftover yarn. But the question was, should I create a pom-pom out of the leftover yarn, or should I attach the hot pink pom-pom that I bought? So that is a question coming up shortly. It definitely is getting a pom-pom, but this is the Pom-Pom Rox Hat, and I'm calling it my Wineback, W-H-I-N-E, Wineback hat, because this is what I did while I was whining that I wasn't at Rhinebeck this year, and even worse, was running during Rhinebeck. So my ends are mostly woven in. I did actually leave the end, I should say my ends are half woven in. I wove in one set. I did not weave in the set up at the top. I mean, I closed the brim and wove it in as far as that goes, but I haven't cut it because the other thing that I haven't decided is if I put the store-bought pom-pom on there, it won't really be washable. And I might want to take the pom-pom off. So I was thinking about putting a button in the top of the hat and then attaching the pom-pom that way. And actually I could still do that if I did this pom-pom, but so I haven't woven in that end yet because I'm not sure if I'm going to use it for something. But that is my Pom-Pom Rox hat, my Wineback hat, and I am totally pleased even if I'm a couple years behind the trend because I think it's going to be super warm for this winter. And if it gets cold, then I'm going to be all about it. So that is the first project that I cast on this week. The second project that I cast on this week is a scarf for Miss Roxy. My sister asked me last year to start making scarves for Roxy because she has decided that it makes her feel grown up, which is fabulous. And so I was trying to decide what I was going to do this year. I didn't have enough yarn left over from knitting her hat and mitten set. I was hoping that I would be able to use that, but I didn't. And then I had that whole thing where I dyed some extra yarn, but then it didn't match the previous skein that I had dyed. So I really wasn't sure what to do, and I was trying to decide about a million things because I had done... I did that shawl earlier this year where I used the hand-dyed sock blank in the rainbow gradient, and I was thinking about doing something for her in that, but that's fingering weight, and I just don't have a ton of time left because we exchange gifts in my family. So my family does not celebrate Christmas. Those of you who have watched the podcast, you know this, but I'll still say it. My family does not celebrate Christmas, and my husband's family does. And my sister actually married a man who... Also, we're Jewish, and my sister married a man who was not Jewish as well. So Thanksgiving is our big family holiday with my parents, and then we each spend Christmas with our in-laws. So we exchange gifts when we see each other at Thanksgiving. And so my timeline for knitting holiday gifts is always shorter because I have to be done by Thanksgiving. So if you're wondering why I keep saying, oh, I only have a few weeks left, it's because Thanksgiving is roughly like a month from now. And so that's what I have left to finish all the gifts for the kids. So Roxy needed a scarf, and so I went looking. So I was thinking about all these different things and all these fingering weight yarns, and then I decided I have a ton of leftover superwash. A lot of it is Cascade Superwash 220 leftover from other projects. Some of it is other yarns. And then I had this crazy, and I was thinking, why don't I just do like a crazy stripy scarf with all of the leftovers that I have? And what I was thinking about is Jared Flood's it's his striped Noro scarf. It's the 2 rows, and it's not really his pattern. It's just a very basic, but he put pattern notes on Ravelry, and so that is what I'm using. And so what I decided to do was gather all my superwashes together, and then I was trying to find something like a theme to kind of tie it around. And my friend, a friend of mine, sent me this skein. This is called Stella Jack, probably short for Jacquard, from Adria Phil. And it is a superwash merino, and it is in this crazy rainbow. So obviously it's got some self-striping or self-patterning, and it's in this crazy rainbow, and I was like, I have all these great colors. So I started pulling out all these colors. I have this pink left over from a pink protest hat that I've done. I have green left over from a sweater that I did for Miles. I have this kind of crazy yellow left over from something that I made. I have cherry red left over, and I have blue, like a dark blue left over. And so these are all, these 4 are definitely Cascade 220 Superwash. The green is actually, I think it's Yowza. But so they're all superwash worsted weight, and what I decided to do is just do the Noro 2-row scarf, and she is probably 4 feet tallish, maybe. She's probably not even that tall. So I think I'm going to do like between 3 and 4 feet. And I started this last night and I am loving it. I started it with the yellow and the pink, and then I started putting in the rainbow ball, and you can see the rainbow ball is striping in, and I'm just going to keep going until I run out of the pink and then put in another color. And so this will be a 2-row stripy scarf. I'm knitting it in the 1x1 rib. That is so it is completely reversible. I will have a bunch of ends to weave in, although I wove in all of my starting ends last night, and I am just, like I said, I'm switching every 2 rows. I'm slipping the first stitch at each edge to make it a really nice border, and it's just going to be a really, really fast, really fun knit, and it will go with probably all of her hats and mittens and things that I've knit her over the years. So I'm super pleased with this because I was like, how am I going to crank out a whole nother knit? Do I have to come up with a design? What am I going to do? And now, you know, I knit this last night while I was sitting on the couch, so it'll be fine, and I'm already at least 6 or 8 inches in, so I'm just gonna keep going until I run out of yarn. And yeah, so that is Roxy's 2-row scarf for stripy fun and all the fun colors. The other knit that I have on the needles that you are not seeing is the Briggs and Little slippers for the Briggs and Little knit along, and I need to finish those because that knit along finishes on the 15th. I did wind up the skein of yarn last time, and I just have not touched those. Order of priority this week is finish the socks, and then I need to get in and finish those slippers. So hopefully I will have, I'm sure I won't have them felted by next weekend, but hopefully I will have something to show you for those this weekend. And I'll just keep working on my other things. So I brought two other things to show you. One falls in the category of future knits, and I'm sorry I didn't open this before, so please excuse the crinkling. I talked in the beginning about NakniSweMo, National Knit a Sweater Month. And part of me was like, this is crazy. I should not bother to knit a sweater because, I'm sorry, this is like super crinkly. I should not bother to knit another sweater because I actually still have another sweater on the needles. I'm so terrible. I actually still have my summer sweater on the needles, and so I should really not be starting another sweater, but it's NakniSweMo, so I'm gonna do it anyway. I have been hoarding this. I ordered this not that long ago from Lammy Toes. I did a custom order. I don't know if she's still doing custom orders, but this is Sweet Pea Sport 8020 Superwash Merino Nylon, 328 yards, 100 grams in the colorway Sweet Tooth. If you remember, I knit a pair of socks this past year in Sweet Tooth, and I absolutely love them, and I loved the base. It is super squishy and lovely, and so I ordered 4 skeins, which is enough for a sweater quantity for me, and I am going to knit a cardigan for NakniSweMo. I am torn between, and the only reason I'm saying both of them is because I can't remember which one, Newsome and Waits. They are essentially the same sweater by Bristol Ivy, and one is knit from the top down and one is knit from the bottom up. I think Waits is knit from the top down, in which case it's W-A-I-T-S. I will put a link in the show notes. I want to knit the top down one. Basically, it is a sweater that is sort of constructed. I haven't purchased the pattern and looked at it yet, but the back on the sweater is basically a mitered square. So it's knitting some interesting corners, and it kind of geometrically comes together in the back. It is not a cropped cardigan, but it's not a long cardigan, and that is fine with me. I am looking for something simple to put on. One of the things that I love about it is that it does not have it does not actually have closures on it. At least I don't think it does. And buttonholes are kind of one of my nemesis, along with fingers on gloves. My buttonholes always look kind of sloppy, and then I have to sew on buttons, and I'm okay with a sweater that does not close. This is like a good cardigan. A lot of what I've been wearing lately are leggings and long tunics, and so I think this will be great over it. And I really have wanted to knit a speckled sweater for a while now, and the colors in this are like pink and kind of a mustardy yellow, orange, and purple, and some red, and those are all colors that I wear, and so I think this is going to be a great layering piece and a really nice sweater to knock around in at home. And it's got that little bit of it's got the merino, which makes it super soft, and the nylon, and it's just super squishy and lovely. So I need to swatch up this week, but then I'm going to have to pull my swatch out because I'm going to need every last yard. I may end up having to shorten the sleeves on the cardigan and make it 3/4 sleeves, depending on how I do. But this is what I'm going to knit for NakniSweMo. So that is what I'm looking forward to knitting. The final piece is I had some unexpected yarn stash enhancement this weekend. Like I said, the weekend was kind of crazy. We ran on Saturday morning, or I walked, and we finished and we showered and we checked out of the hotel, and then we had to drive to Des Moines, which is about a 3-hour drive. And the drive was not a big deal, but we had to get to Des Moines before the Des Moines Expo closed, the health expo, so that we could pick up our packets and our bibs for the next day, because they didn't do any pickups the day of. So we drove up there really quickly, and then the boys were super tired because they had each run a half marathon and were looking forward to running another half marathon the next day, basically a full marathon over the weekend. And so I didn't think much of it, and we went to bed early and whatever, and I got up the next morning and I got set to walk in a race. And I lined up near the back of the group because I don't run. Occasionally I jog, but mostly I walk. And if you line up at the back, then you don't have everybody like running to get in front of you. So I never want to get in the way of the people who actually want to run it and go quickly. So I lined up at the back, and I was standing near the back and wearing my hand knits. It was great. And a woman came up to me and said, I usually run these things, but I'm injured, and so I'm going to walk at the back. And I said, oh yeah, I just walked too. And she said, can we walk together? And I was like, sure, why not? People in the Midwest, super friendly. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Anyway, so she and I walked the race together. And among other things, her daughter is a knitter. And so she was like, oh, you got to go to the yarn shop. It's here in town. And I was like, oh, I hadn't even, because we were going to finish the race. The race started at 8. We were going to finish probably around 11. We had to check out of our hotel by 12. And we still had a 3-hour drive home. And none of us had been home all weekend. We had friends with us who were also running the race. We had laundry to do and grocery shopping and everything else. And I was like, even though I love yarn tourism, I hadn't even thought we were going to have time for it, so I didn't even, like, look when we went up there. And she was like, oh no, they're open on Sundays. You gotta go. So I get back to the hotel room, I'm showering, I'm telling my husband about this whole thing, and he's like, well, are they open? So I go and look up the yarn shop, and they're not open till 1, and it's like 11:30, and we're getting ready to check out of the hotel, and he's like, well, but we want to go to lunch anyway, and as long as we're here, why don't we go? And I was like, no, I don't want to drag our friends to the yarn store. So we're sitting at lunch, and he's like, so would you guys mind if we go to the yarn store afterwards? And one of my friends sitting across the table, he's like, there's a yarn store here? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you want to go? And I said, well, no, I mean, it isn't a big thing. You know, I don't need to drag you there. And he's like, no. He's like, is it right around here? And I'm like, yeah, it's like 5 minutes from where we're eating lunch. And he's like, no, we gotta go. You might as well go. And he's like, and I want to see the inside of the yarn store. And I was like, okay. So we went over to the yarn store, and Wes and Griffin walked around the yarn store while I found something that I wanted. And Griffin was like, is this like a normal yarn store? It was a really nice yarn store, you guys. It's called Yarn Junction, and it is on the south side of Des Moines, according to the map. That's what it was telling me. It is right around where 235 and 35 join up. And it was super nice. So I went in, and the first thing I asked for, of course, is local dyers. And she said, well, I don't have much that's like from right here in Des Moines, but we have someone from Cedar Rapids. And I was like, excellent. So she sent me over to Stitch Together Studios, which, if you remember, that's what I bought in Chicago a few months ago. So she sent me to Stitch Together Studios. And what I hadn't noticed about the tag before is, so Stitch Together Studios, hand-dyed somewhere in Iowa, rad yarn for rebels. And so I went over and I was looking at all the yarn, and I kept gravitating towards this particular skein. And the colorway is the Notorious RBG. So Notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it is this beautiful skein of purples, then with speckles of all kinds. It's got pink, it's got yellow, it's got green, it's got some neon yellow and orange up here. It's just like a crazy fun skein. And so I purchased the skein, and I was like, you know, this kind of looks like the skein that I purchased in Chicago. It is not the same skein that I purchased in Chicago, but the skein I purchased in Chicago is called Rust Bucket. And so now I have these two skeins that are actually quite similar. This one is a little bit more of a lavender, and then it's got like some navy blue in it, but this one kind of has the same like pump of blue. It's kind of similar. And then this one is more rusty. It's got orange and pinks in it, with splotches of that blue. And like I said, this one's more like lavender and purple with splotches of all kinds of different things. But basically, I have two skeins of very, very similar yarn now. So I've decided they should go in a shawl together. And all I have to do is decide what I want to do. This skein, the Notorious RBG skein, also seems to have like a little bit of gray in it. So I'm wondering if I should get like black, and if it would set off these really well, or like a very dark gray. Or then I'm wondering if I should go bright and find like kind of a bright pink skein to go with these. I just have no idea, but one of these is smooth. I think actually they're both smooth sock. Yep. They're smooth sock, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. Very, very nice. 463 yards in each skein. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with these, but I'm going to make a really big shawl, because if I come up with a third skein, then it will be a super big shawl, and then I'll just have to come up with something. So apparently I'm trending towards these colors now, and Stitch Together Studios. And Stitch Together, you have really awesome yarn. Maybe I'm going to have to just look and see if I can find a third colorway from you to put all these together. So yeah, that's my unexpected stash enhancement. Spinning. Wow, this is a long podcast. Thank you for sticking with me. This is longer than I've been going lately. Let me lean over and grab my fiber because it fell on the floor. Fiber update. I was, last time we talked, I talked about spinning a, 2 bumps, together for 8 ounces to do a shawl. I am still in the first bump. I probably have one more night working on that. And then here is the second bump. And as I said, I'm going to spin it fractally. So the first bump I spun straight through, just as it was, with big long color, sections. And then on this one, I am going to separate this one into either probably 4 or 8 chunks and spin it through. So the shawl will stripe. So, and actually, if I'm really good, what I'll do is I'll divide this in half, and the first half I'll divide into small chunks, and the second half I'll divide into bigger chunks, because then as I knit it, the stripe patterns will stay more consistent, because as the shawl gets bigger as it goes, the stripes will go less far, if that makes sense. If I do them all super short runs, then they will run right together in the last section because the rows will be so long. So I might play with that, and I can talk more about that next time. But that is what's on my wheel, and I didn't bring in the bobbin to show you. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm 35 minutes in, which is longer than I usually go, but I had lots to talk about. I hope you have had a wonderful week. Again, I'm sorry that I'm a smidge late for this, but I hope it was worth the wait. And thanks for tuning in with me, and I'll talk to you again next time. So I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.